US and South Korea will be conducting a major joint military exercise near the North Korean border next week. Russia's voiced concerns over the drills, which will involve around 12,000 American soldiers. Ilya Petrenko's in Seoul with the latest on the tensions.
What has been Donald Trump's approach to sorting out the North Korea crisis in a nutshell?
All options remain on the table. Second option, not a preferred option. They will be met with fire and fury. Do not underestimate us, and do not try us.
The distance from here to the border with North Korea is only about 40 kilometers. And once you end up in Seoul, which is well in the firing range of Kim's artillery, you can't help looking at that rhetoric from a different perspective, especially if there is what you'd call a totally different approach.
There's absolutely no alternative to dialogue. But in order to start that dialogue, everyone has to stop, take a deep breath, and a step back from the red line which we're almost at.
So why can we hope that the only option, according to Moscow, will prevail? Well, the South Korean capital is hosting a Russian Valdai Discussion Club conference where local officials and experts have gathered to hear what the Russian diplomats and researchers have come up with. So Russia's been saying, hey, we've got a plan. Step one, North Korea should completely halt its missile and nuclear tests. For the U.S., that means an end to almost non-stop war games with Seoul. Moscow calls it a double freeze. Step two might be very tough. Direct talks between Washington and Pyongyang on rules of peaceful coexistence. And finally, they should lead to step three, establishing a security framework for the entire region, with every player involved. Doors are closed for the main session, and one of the South Korean officials who's taken part is the president's advisor for foreign policy. Mr. Moon, good afternoon. What do you think about the Russian roadmap?
I think that the proposal is very realistic, flexible. I hope on the occasion of Pyeongchang Winter Olympic, all the parties concerned, particularly between North and South, would come up with a more self-restraining behavior.
But do you think it's enough in this case?
Of course, not enough. There should be some new initiative to create and sustain peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Donald Trump keeps saying that all options are on the table.
North Korea knew that the military option is always on the table. Therefore, by putting the military option on the table, it's not likely changing North Korean behavior.
As the advisor of the South Korean president, what do you tell him about the drill?
I personally favor engagement, dialogue, and negotiation with North Korea. And some people in the government may have different ideas.
That brings us to why the Russian roadmap may never actually work.
I think most Korean politicians believe the drills must be pursued for our defense. For now, we're not cancelling US-Korean exercises, we just want to postpone them for the Olympics.
Others openly reject Moscow's plan, like the neighbors in Tokyo, who simply can't imagine security without the drills with their allies. So for now, South Koreans have no other choice but to welcome US Raptors and co. for the Vigilance Ace War Games. Oh, that's just in a few days. Anyway, for those who live in Seoul or who are here to talk about keeping the peace in Korea, there's something to bear in mind. Be it for war games or real strikes that would put millions of lives at risk. The decision to send, let's say, warplanes to the Korean skies may depend on one single man, miles and miles away on the other side of the Pacific.